map out my brain about what the whole topic, and then I'm going to just walk through it in a way that makes sense. So what I've done is, if you look at the chat, you'll see that there's a link to my mural board that should be available. So this is something you can explore on your own later. But basically, I'm just going to guide you through this monster that I created in the last week. So just to give you a like bird's eye view of what it looks like, I'm not going to address everything, but I wanted to kind of show like what's in my brain right now when it comes to these questions. So the first thing is I'm going to start my timer so that I don't go over. So first of all, who am I? My name is Mathieu Plourde. You can call me Matt. I have some information on how you connect. You can connect with me on social media and everything. I work for the Faculté des Sciences de l'Administration, a Faculty of Business Administration at Université Laval in Quebec City. And yes, we do speak French. So I'm going to start with like the main issue, and this is something that a couple of weeks ago we had an AI boot camp with a bunch of our instructional designers on campus that was organized by a faculty member in the College of Education. And one of the things that came out of the actual event was that we all felt like we were stuck between we needing to act really fast and needing to be very thoughtful. And that's like basically having your foot on one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas. And it's like, so we're trying to figure out um, how we're going to work with this. So I'm going to start with the left side, which is short term. What are the two things that we should look at? We should look at academic integrity on the one hand and innovation in teaching and learning on the other. So the whole idea of I'll start with academic integrity because that's kind of the elephant in the room, right? Um, Academic integrity, when it comes to AI, it's definitely one of the drivers in terms of what faculty members are asking about. They're like, well, my assignments don't mean anything anymore because the students can just complete them with just a chat GPT, just one prompt or whatever. So now what do we do about this? What are some of the things that we can do? And I would say the first thing that I do when I work with faculty, and we've done a couple of training sessions within departments at the College of Business. In the last year, we met all the departments, and we're going to do a second round this year with more like hands-on workshops and that kind of stuff. But the first thing is really the idea of the risk analysis. So when we look at a course, we need to look at the assignments, and we need to figure out which assignments are at risk and which ones are not. So this is in French. Sorry about that. But basically, the idea that assessment activities are going to be more at risk if they are summative, if they're worth a lot of points, if they're done remotely instead of in class, if there's surveillance, uh, if there's no surveillance, they're going to be more risky. If you give students more time to complete them, it's going to be more risky. And if they can be answered with very generic stuff, if it's in Bloom's basement, basically, chances are that's going to be easy to answer. So the whole idea, so I just go through this process with faculty members when they ask me about this. And one of the other things that I do is just basically make them aware of the syllabus policy, because we do have at the College of Business, we decided in the template for the syllabus that we would put a notice that says that AI tools are forbidden unless the instructor has made it clear that they want it to be used in certain ways. So I want our faculty members to be aware that this policy is there. And then how do you actually now that you have this, we're not just doing a blanket statement on the use of AI for every class, we're actually doing it at the assessment level. And one of the things that about these steps is that every step of the assignment could benefit from using AI or not. So it's not just a blanket statement about the assignment. It's really, if your assignment has an ideation phase, if it's got a discovery phase, it's got an analysis phase, are you allowing students to use the AI tools at that step, and why would you allow it or forbid it? So you really have to come up with a justification on why you're going to do this. So just to show you, this is not something that we've made available yet, but basically these are the steps that I go through with my faculty members when I meet with them. So the first thing is I do an inventory of what their assignments are, figure out if they're at risk or not, what modality they're using, and then afterwards, now out of this, they're going to come up with some recommendation in terms of how we reduce the risk of cheating with AI. And then I help them with just coming up with what are the suggestions or justifications that we're going to use for each one of these steps. And then afterwards, you write your actual instructions, and then you can just copy and paste that table inside your assignment, so that students know exactly what to expect when it comes to these assignments. So the other thing is there is also a good example from Tori Trust, who's an instructor at the UMass Amherst that is great here. So you can explore that stuff on your own. Our student government came out with some kind of a white paper on what they want the university to do in terms of AI, and basically they say it loud and clear that they want us to come up with required syllabus policy for every one of the courses at the university level, but also to encourage faculty members to be very clear on the instructions when it comes to that stuff. So exactly like we were talking about yesterday, like the UCF survey. So students are afraid of getting into trouble for doing something that they didn't know they couldn't do. So this is definitely something that comes out loud and clear from this report as well. Now, if I go a little bit further, there was this post from Liu that was about the idea of the assessment of learning and the assessment for learning. So if you haven't read that one, this one is very great because it basically says it talks about the two-lane approach. Um, so assured assessment of learning versus assessment as learning, where basically as if you can't observe the student doing something, then you can't know you can't assume that assessment is valid or not. Like you can't assume that. So you have to really have that in mind every time that there's no way around it at this point. Give me a second. So you can explore that as well. So basically, that brings the idea of assessment of learning on one side and assessment for learning on the other side. So this one is really the idea that you're going to leverage summative and formative assignments to prepare learners. In those cases, you're going to allow the students to use whatever toolbox they would have access to, especially if it's related to preparing the student for their workforce. I put the showcase from FIU in the diagram. So if you guys haven't gotten the URL yet, I thought that you guys did a really good job, Michael, and all these folks at the FIU. So shout out to that. But basically the whole idea is also when you do assessment for learning, you also have to kind of reduce the incentives to cheat. And one of the ways to do that is to reduce, for instance, the summative value of these assignments and say, we're going to do this as if it was a formative assessment. And then, so let me go back to the top here where we talk about the assessment of learning. When it comes to assessment of learning, uh, there's definitely an issue um, for instance, if we really want to make sure that we validate the identity of the student who's taking an assignment, that they're not using tools or other people or that kind of stuff. You really have to control the environment, and we don't really have like good computer labs when students can do computerized testing. So, so basically we're back to doing face-to-face assignments or, in-class exams and that kind of stuff. But there's also like, you could do oral exams, you could do like presentations online, that kind of stuff. So there's other ways that you can kind of know that you're actually talking to the right students and that they're displaying if they've reached a competency or not. And then in those cases, you reduce the opportunities to cheat. But the other thing that's really important is the idea that it needs to be enforced. So you need to come up with ways that you're going to have people at the university who are going to enforce those rules. If there's something because if you don't, then you're going to have reputational damage to your brand, and you're reducing the value of the degree of your institution. So one of the things that our institution and our college has done is that we recommend systematically for faculty members who have a doubt that a student has cheated with AI to just denounce them. And there's some staff actually that works in our vice provost office that would do the work of collecting all the evidence and building the case around these things. So even if the students, we can't ultimately prove that these students have cheated with AI, the process makes it so that if there's enough proof or enough evidence that points towards, or there's a probability that the student has cheated, they would have a consequence. So you really have to make sure that you can enforce these rules. And sometimes it is very hard to actually prove, but that's one thing that we try to do as much as possible. And of course, AI detection is not something that we recommend and that actually works. And there's resources that you can look for that as well. So now let me go back to, I was supposed to talk about AI literacy. So one of the things that um, when it comes to academic integrity, we want to raise awareness about academic integrity and raise awareness about literacy. I really like this model from Stanford that basically says that AI literacy is functional. So understanding how AI works, what an LLM is, what what's the idea with tokens and that kind of stuff. On an ethical point of view, rhetorical is just basically prompt engineering. How do you actually get the results that you're looking for with these tools? Pedagogical, how do you use it for teaching and learning? And it's always like basically the overarching thing is the human-centered values. So why are we engaging with AI, and is there anything else that we could use? Really, um, and we always have to think about literacy in terms of a continuum. So I'm not expecting all my faculty members in my college to become experts or fluent in in AI. I want them to be literate, or if they were stimulated, I want them to become novice. So I want to move the needle, and little by little, eventually they'll get to the level that we want them to be at. But it's going to take some time because we still want them to be experts in their discipline. We don't want everybody to be an AI expert. You know, we have a couple of people who are going to be AI experts, but we want other people to actually be literate. We don't need them to become experts or fluent. Sorry. Uh, there's a couple of other, frameworks that you want to look at. I'm going to go to another part of the diagram. So if we look at innovation in teaching and learning, the very the very first thing that we can say is that let's focus on the solutions that are deployed at the enterprise level. So right now, the two solutions we have are Copilot and Elicit. So those are the two that we have institutional licenses for. So we do encourage faculty members and students to use these tools as much as they want, because those are covered under the enterprise licenses that protect the institution and protect the data. But definitely, when you look at the barriers when it comes to adopting some of these tools, there's a bunch of things that we have to look at. Carbon footprint, ethical dilemma, intellectual property. That's the big one. How do you find data sources that you have access to, that you have like the permission to use? And usually it's going to be content that faculty members have developed themselves. It's going to be something that, or it's going to be OER, or it's going to be a couple of different things of that nature. So of course, there's all these barriers and all these things. Of course, being Canadian, we do favor Canadian hosting, Canadian tools, that kind of stuff. So we're going back to like basically away from SaaS and more on-prem deployment. Um, and then if I go back to innovation, we experiment prudently with other tools. So this is like, for instance, the Coggle that I use. It's basically every time that I find an AI tool, I add it to this mind map. So this is just like what I know about. Doesn't mean that I tried them all, but if you want to explore, this is a good place to start. We give some seed money to our faculty members using to actually try stuff with AI. And then afterwards, that information is shared back to the community, of course. We do have a community of practice of instructional designers on campus that talk about AI as well. So communities of practice are great for that stuff. Because you can really identify the stakeholders and have these conversations that are related to everything. All of this basically, if you look at the future state where you want to be later, you want to re-engineer teaching and learning and assessment of learning. So you want to have a good governance and vetting process. All of this, everything you've done so far feeds into this, and then, but it doesn't change the idea that you do have uh, uh, some issues that are more structural, like for instance, that your university is underfunded, that your classes are too big, that grades and learning are basically a can of worms. If you try to get rid of the grades, you might be able to actually get rid of cheating. And then just a couple of more things. We do have just some guidelines that were developed for teaching and learning that I invite you to look at. But basically, we want to get our future state, and where we want to get is operationalizing these five principles, which are primacy of human relationship, openness, exploration and training, prudence and informed use, integrity and transparency, and collective intelligence and collaboration. So that would be my 15-minute presentation at this point, but I'm open for questions. I know that um, it's a whirlwind, but basically I did exactly the opposite of what Angela said yesterday. Angela said, I don't want to give people homework. I want to give them resources. This is homework for you guys to explore this. So I'm sorry, but you can do it on your own time and take whatever time you want. But yeah, I wanted to really just express how the complexity, and basically there's so much that's out of the scope of the instructional designer in there. So anyway, so questions or comments?
Matthew, you are good with time. We will start the next one at 3:25, so you have a
Yep.
good few minutes for Q&A.
Yep.
Um, I
Absolutely.
I will let you know in the chat, not only myself, but several people have thought, thank you for your resources, and you've been contributing in other sessions as well, some great resources. So I will just announce a big thank you for all that you've been
Okay, good.
sharing during the workshop.
And I'll come off of mute as well, Matt, to say thank you. Thank you so much for being a partner in TOPkit and for taking the time to create this resource and sharing it with us. I see that you have a CC license, so those of us who will be using it, and you notice I say those, I said those of us, not just those, will be
Hmm.
able to create the right attribution as we share further. And
Hmm.
I wish you all the best as you continue to create this infrastructure, this ecosystem of care that you
Hmm.
have created for your faculty. It reminds me of what Michael Wright said last year, giving faculty a soft place to land.
Hmm.
Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, that's a great, it's always it's one of those things where I really want, every time that I have an interaction with a faculty member, I always try to put myself in their shoes and say, am I like just giving them more work, or giving them like I'm basically just doing some kind of a raising awareness about something and giving them no option to move forward? Because that's one of the things that I don't want to just add to the anxiety of faculty members. I always want to make sure that I come up with a solution, and usually there's usually one small step that we can take. And I'd rather have like just take one small step. Like for instance, I had a discussion with a faculty member who was teaching it's basically a graduate class to learn how to write research papers in MIS. And one of the things that she noticed is that the students were in that class, they needed to actually submit a paper and do an oral presentation in that class. And the only thing that we actually did to her class is that we flipped the the point value of the paper versus the presentation. So it's the idea that like her paper was like 40% of the final grade and the presentation was 10. She flipped it around and said, now it's going to be 10 for the paper because I know that the paper can be written with AI, heavily assisted with AI, but the presentation is going to be 40% now. And you really need to be able to know what you're talking about, and you need everything that you say in your paper needs to be aligned with what you're going to be presenting to me. So even if you were heavily assisted to write your paper, you need to understand what's in there and you need to own it. And just these little adjustments, sometimes just changing the value of the different assignments within your class can make all the difference in the world in making sure that you have a class that's actually that's more robust and that's protected against the bad value that AI can bring, basically the avoidance of work that students could have. Any part of the map that you want to explore more, or a concept, or is this something you're just going to do on your own? Anyway, it was a lightning talk, so
And you
try
said
to
this is
keep it fast.
something that you will share out with us,
Oh, it's
correct?
already well, the link is already in the it's on Hoova, and
Oh, and who?
it's in the
Okay,
chat. Yeah.
great.
So you can I'll copy the link again for people who have joined
Yeah, we
late.
do have a few that are coming and going kind of through the room,
Yeah.
so I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't mind pasting that again.
Yeah.
We do still have a couple minutes left if we have any questions or feedback or
Yeah.
comments for Matthew.
Don't be shy. Come on.
Yeah.
There's got to
Okay.
be something in there that, keeps
There's
your attention.
all
Go ahead,
right.
Jen.
I'm here. Hello, Matthew. It's wonderful to see you. And
Jen
I
was my
just
student too. She was my
yeah,
colleague and student.
student both. Yeah, at
Yeah.
University of Delaware. Shout
Yeah.
out.
Mm,
So I just wanted to thank you for this incredible resource, but also to ask a question because I noticed it yesterday when you shared the your principles website with us.
Yep.
And the first principle, primacy of human relationships, is something that just resonates, I think, probably with all of us as instructional designers because we always get the layers of technology and we have to be well versed in that and how to apply it. But can you speak to this and what this means to you in your application of AI?
Okay. Well, when it comes to the application of AI, is that like if we're not making human connections at the university, what are we doing really? You know, we're not one of these universities that people come in and do like correspondence courses. If we want to be different, then we need to bring that back. We need to we can't just always design activities that are going to be self-paced, that students are going to work with AI, are going to work with, independently. So that's one of the things that we always have to remember, is that if we, as a university, we are positioning ourselves as a university where faculty members are accessible to the students, and the knowledge is accessible to the students. And, we're going to find a hybrid approach where students are going to use AI and, to enhance their learning experience. But we do not want to do that at the expense of connecting with other students and connecting with faculty members.
Thank you so much, Matthew, and thank you, attendees, for the great questions, feedback, input, all of that. We are going to go ahead and do